Hi guys, this is Kathy with Single Mom Advice, and as you know, I'm not really great with audio and video production. So instead of looking at me today and having to explain things on a whiteboard from a distance, I thought I would go directly to the source document and talk to you a little bit about something that I hope will help you. I heard a statistic some time ago that says that the average American family moves every 5 to 7 years. And I'm in the process of doing that now. So I made myself a checklist, just going from experiences that I've had in the past to say, what do I need to do to notify those third parties that will need to have my new address or need to know that I'm leaving my current address, right? And then how can I kind of keep track of, was I successful or not at letting them know? What else do I need to do? What's the best way to go about this? And then how long will it take? When should I expect the address to actually get updated in the third-party system? So what I did, I went into Excel, as you can see, and started making a spreadsheet. And I took the lines out, put some colors in, tried to make it pretty for you guys. But basically, and these aren't in a particular order, and you're going to think of things that obviously I haven't thought of, but this is a really great place to start if you don't have something like this already. And if you have moved before, you'll remember why you needed to contact these companies and these groups, okay? And what happens if you don't sometimes, and that sort of thing. But a lot of these don't have a cost involved with them, but I'm going to start off with driver's license, updating your driver's license, which it seems like there is a fee of some kind. So I made a little column for any kind of cost involved with getting that address updated. Now, again, these will probably be different if you're renting and moving versus if you are you own a home and you're selling and moving. And then also whether or not when you get to your next destination, whether you're going to be owning or renting as well. So this is just from the standpoint of selling my home and then trying to remember some other things that might apply to others as well. So again, starting from the top, these are general items. Your driver's license, you're required by the state. I'm in Florida to make sure that your driver's license address is current, is up to date. And along with that, if you are in a place where you can get your registration updated at the same time, or if you need to go in and separately in another location within the county or the state office, change your vehicle registration. And then usually your voter's registration is part of that process. So hopefully you can get all that changed at the same time. You're letting them know you're not going to be in that area for voting going forward, unless of course you're just moving within your voting area. But this doesn't include where you're going to be voting next, okay, wherever it is you're moving to. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, the Postal Service, they always had these handy cards that they would give out or that were available in little packs, and you could put in your old address and your new address and send those off, and then, of course, drop one in the Postal Service box for them to make the system change, where they would then take any mail that came to your address with a little sticky update that said, no forwarding, or that they were forwarding it and the address had changed and what that address was on your behalf. Now they have, of course, an online site, and you can set up your own online account, and you can make all the changes that you need to there. It's going to ask you for, the dates and all of that good stuff, and, when it's effective, that sort of thing. But it will still take time for all those folks who are sending you things in the mail where there's a little bit of a lag. So for example, if I moved out today, and let's say today's Friday and it's the first of the month, whoever mailed something to me from Illinois or Texas or California or New York just a few days ago, that mail is already en route, and their mail is going to get to my post office, existing post office location, and there's going to be that lag right before they can get it forwarded to me. So that's why I put under the turn time column, I put 7 to 10 days. And again, that's just an example. You'll have the turn times for these as you go along. You'll see how long it takes or if it's immediate, okay? And a lot of those online services, anytime you can make a change online to your account, you've already had to log in, you've had to use some sort of security, your password, for example, something like that, or a token number sent to your phone in a text, such that there's not a lot of verification they have to do on their part, and your update can be processed as you enter it and hit OK and update it. So I do expect there's going to be some issues, for example, where, I go in person, for example, back to my driver's license item, and I pay the fee. They make the change in the system, and then I find that it didn't go through for whatever reason, and or they spelled my name wrong or the address wrong of the street, etc. So I made a place on my spreadsheet to capture any of those attempts that were not successful, and then a place to put in why and what needs to happen next. So I could keep track of those things, and I wouldn't have to remember all those things because there's a number of these items as we go along, and you don't want to have to worry about that. Where am I with that? What happened? Who did I talk to? What was her extension, etc., of the person who tried to help me. And so here's just a place to capture that to make your move a little bit smoother, hopefully. So we mentioned the driver's license, DMV, voter's registration, all of those things tied to that statewide service and tracking. And then I mentioned the mail, that's federal. And then, of course, your employers will immediately, you'll want to let them know as soon as you know. And something to keep in mind for all of this, if you know that you're going to close on a particular day, and let's say you're selling one home and buying another, things happen. They don't always happen on that date, but you want to shoot for that date, okay? And you want to give them that date, and you want to move on the assumption that you are going to close on that date. Even if things go awry, you can update later because you will have documented who you talked to, when you talked to them, who you let notify, and that sort of thing. So you can go from there. But obviously your employers will want to know. They may have you going through, if it's a small company, for example, a payroll company like ADP, where you go in, you make your own changes, that sort of thing. So, if you work for more than one company, obviously you'd want to let them know in whatever format they require. And then again, capture how long it'll take before that shows up, because again, if it applies to your payroll, you're going to want to know how long is that going to take for them to update my records, such that I will get, let's say, a pay stub, if that's, what you get in the mail, a pay stub from your employer, and hopefully, your money is going direct deposit. But if it isn't, then you'll look for your checks and other things to come through the mail. Now, I put some personal things on there, like family. We're a little disjointed these days. We don't have family get-togethers in person as much as we used to. So I'm going to leave that open to you as to who you contact, when and how, and whether or not you let them know that you've left town. But, if you want to get invited to Thanksgiving or Christmas or any of those family get-togethers, it would, be in your best interest to let people know how to reach you and how to send you cards, that sort of thing. And any sort of, group you belong to, like I belong to a church locally. I have a Sunday school class I'm very fond of. Those folks I'm going to want to let know. But if you have any social groups that you belong to, things like that, this would be a good place to capture that as well. And of course, your banks. If you still get things in the mail from them, statements, for example, or year-end notifications for mortgage interest paid, like for your taxes, you're going to want to make sure that they have your your address where you'll be at the end of the year. So that's something to consider. So I put a couple of bank names in there. One bank, one credit union, whoever you bank with. I know some banks are only online, and they don't have the bricks and mortar locations anymore. So just make sure you have a category for that. And then your investments, your retirements, any of those companies where you have monies that you're saving, you'll want to let them know as well. And then the credit cards. I know you're going to be tempted not to let them know, but those are folks that you definitely want to ensure that they have your next address, because if there is an issue where you didn't get a statement from them and you wanted to make the payment and you had the money to make the payment and you're proud that you are on time every month, and then something happens when you move and there's a disconnect, there's a miscommunication, or you don't confirm that they have your new information, and you miss that date, that pay by date, even if you didn't mean to, it's still going to ding your credit. It's still going to show up as a negative mark, and it will be correct and true, and it doesn't matter that you moved. It will be correct according to the credit reporting agencies, and they're going to capture that, and it will affect your credit score in a negative manner. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Anything actually that reports to your credit. So if you have, for example, student loans is another example. I didn't have that on here. Anything that's going to show up on your credit report with Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. Then we have personal loans. You know, if you have a company where they just let you sign for a loan of either a line of credit or an actual loan, then you're going to want to let them know as well. Same as the credit cards, because they may or may not be reporting your credit, but if they are, you're definitely going to want to make sure that they have your information as it changes. Line of credit the same way if you have a line of credit with a local bank. Okay, and then you've got your utilities. Now your utilities are a little bit different because they're going to have a shutoff date. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you have someone who's moving in, who's bought your home, and they're going to move in the day you move out. Let's say they've got their U-Haul packed and the 2.5 kids and the dog, and everyone's ready to move in the moment you get your stuff out and you hand over the keys at closing, and you don't want to pay for their water or for their electric or gas. You don't want to pay for, you know, any of those things that are in your name. And so you're going to call those entities, those utilities, in advance of your closing date, and you're going to say, I'm selling my home. We're going to close on the 30th of this month, or whatever your closing date is estimated to be. And you're going to give them your forwarding address. And you're going to do that because some of these companies will also report to your credit if you did not pay a final bill, for example, and that's also going to affect your credit in a negative way, and you don't want that. So I had that happen years ago. I moved, someone sent my final AT&T bill to someone in California, and I could not correct that for anything, and it sat on my credit for years, and it just showed that I never paid that last $25. So I did pay it once I realized it was on my credit, but of course it was already documented and they wouldn't change it because I did not pay for it. I did not follow up. And so that was on me. And so this is where it comes in really handy to make this list and ensure that you have confirmation that either your water and sewer company, your electric or gas company, all of those entities, whether it's your home security service, internet, cable, if you do happen to have a phone line, all of those companies need to be notified of the date where it will no longer be in your name. So let's say though that no one's moving in right away. The folks that have bought your home are investors and they have people moving in, but not until later. You still don't want to have your services left on in your name at that location. And so when you call the water or electric company, you're going to say, I'm moving on this date. Please take the service out of my name, and the new owner will be responsible for contacting you for the service to put it in their name. However, as of this date, please disconnect it in my name and please forward or send the final bill to me at this new address. Okay. And keeping in mind, of course, that if you don't have a new home address that gets mail, maybe you're going somewhere that's rural and you need a P.O. box, give them your P.O. box because that's, wherever it is you want to receive your mail. Okay. Cell phone is the same thing. And then your insurance. So this, I put this under utilities for your car, your life insurance. I put auto in there. That's duplication. Sorry. But your homeowners is what I wanted to leave out from this area because the homeowners is down in the escrowed area. We'll talk about that in a moment. So let's see. So next we have items that are a little more personal. So these are not as generic, but if you have health insurance, you're going to want to notify your health insurance provider, obviously. This may affect, which doctors you want to go see, and you're going to want to make sure you're getting someone who's in your approved group, for example. Okay, and that could be your general practitioner, your primary care physician, the main person you go to when you've got the sniffles. Your oncologist, radiologist, lab, if you've cancer survivor, that sort of thing, or if you have a chiropractor that you go to, orthodontist, etc. So you're going to want to talk to all those guys and then see if they recommend someone in the area you're moving to, if it's far enough away. Maybe it's a specialist you're seeing for something and they can recommend a specialist for where you're going to, and then you can follow up with your insurance carrier as to whether or not they're covered and that sort of thing. Subscriptions are a really big deal now. A lot of these are online. They're digital. They're not necessarily a newspaper or a magazine or something in print that gets mailed to your home. But of course, they're going to want an updated address for you for your records. Obviously, if you're enrolled in school, like college, you would want to notify them. This is going to impact a few different things, as you can imagine, but they're going to want your current home address, your correct home address. The next section is for those folks who hold licenses either with the state. I'm not sure what a federal license would include, but an example would be, and this is just one I thought of, if you're a mortgage broker and you follow the regulations from the state of Florida that are statute 494, it tells you specifically how many days, like let's say 30 days, for example, that you have from the time you move to the time you need to update that information, have it recorded with the regulator. So in our case, if it's the state of Florida, but since 2008, there's a national database as well that requires that you notify them of changes, and so they're going to want to be notified as well. I didn't put that on here on my cheat sheet, but that's just an example. So if you have a license that you hold and who you're regulated by, and you're going to need to notify them, and that's a requirement to keep your license up to date, current, and active. The IRS, believe it or not, is not just someone you want to contact when it's tax time. According to what I searched earlier, there's a form, Form 8822, that you can submit. I'm sure it's online or on a PDF, something like that, that you complete just to notify them of an address change. And apparently each person in your household who submits a taxpayer document of some kind, so if they submit anything to the IRS, as either head of household or if you're a married couple and you file separately, all of those folks need to turn in one of those forms on their own in case there is a division, like a divorce, for example, and those two folks would now have two different addresses. Okay. Social Security benefits. You're going to want to let the Social Security Administration be aware of your home address, your mailing address, because that impacts whether or not your benefits continue. Actually, it's one of those requirements. They have to have a valid address for you, okay? And that could be SSI, disability, Medicare, all of those kinds of things that are managed by our Social Security Administration. And then last but not least, so I mentioned earlier, whether or not you have your insurance and taxes, property taxes escrowed. So let's start with an example where you do, and you owe money on your home to a lender. The lender sold your note to a loan servicer. So there's a servicing company, and they're the folks that you send your mortgage payment to every month. Now, you may have not only homeowners insurance, you may have flood insurance if that was required because you were in a flood zone, and it's included in the payment that you make each month, as well as property taxes that are paid on your behalf. 1/12 of that amount has been required of you to pay in along with your principal and interest. And then if you had any PMI, private mortgage insurance, that's called other things, MIP, etc., and if that's also captured, that's also escrowed for you on your behalf by the servicing company. And that will get taken care of at the time of close by the title company or the attorney, wherever is, it's different from state to state. Some states don't have title companies. They only allow for attorneys to handle closings. But that should be addressed at that time. Now, as a homeowner with good and bad experiences with servicing companies, capturing changes And I have other videos on this where, your mortgage is sold a few different times, and none of the terms change, but the company that's capturing your new servicing service, that's now providing that service for you, may not have had all of the escrow monies moved over to them, and you'll want to be on top of that. Like I said, that's on a different video. But typically, because the title company or attorney does the research on your property and your whether or not you have a lender and all of that sort of thing to verify that you've got clear title for the next owner who's buying your property, those things are usually identified before closing. And generally speaking, you don't have to worry about this a whole lot. But again, if you're smart, you're going to want to follow through specifically with that homeowner's insurance company. So I personally went through an agency. So the insurance agency is the company who obtained the insurance company for me that I bought my homeowner's insurance through. Okay. I don't have flood, but flood is another example. As you know, it's pretty expensive, and you're going to want to make sure that that's addressed and that you don't owe anything more on that. There's going to be a variance between the amount that they have in escrow for you to date and the date that you close, such that if you're being escrowed for a whole year at a particular amount, and they're collecting an amount based on what they believe next year's taxes will be, what next year's insurance will be, such that they could pay for that when it comes due, you may have some money coming back. Like I said, there'll be a variance there as to how much they've collected and how much is due. Okay, and for homeowners insurance, it's collected up front, so you should have some monies coming back to you for that. Property taxes, again, it depends on when they pay that on your behalf and then when it's actually due. So in Florida, we have the opportunity to get a discount on our property taxes, and I have a video on this, a separate video, and that is calendar year. So for example, this is October of 2022, and in beginning of November, my servicing company will be able to take the monies they have collected from me for my property taxes for the calendar year 2022. So that's January through December, but they can pay it in November for a 4% discount on my behalf. In December, it's 3%, January it's 2%, February it's 1% discount, March it's due, April it's late. Okay, so let's say that it's November 30th and they've already paid that in. Again, you'll have some variance there as to how much they collected, how much they paid, and then how much you actually owe. If you're not going to be living in the home, it's not your property as of November 30th, you obviously paid, even though it was at a discount, for December that you would have coming back to you. But they'll calculate all that for you. You just want to take a look and make sure that that is part of your closing documents. If you have any questions about that, ask the closing agent to explain that to you, go over that figure with you in detail. Okay. Same with the PMI. You may or may not have that. If you put more than 20% down when you purchase the home, you may not have had to carry mortgage insurance on the mortgage payment itself. Okay, so these are just some of the things that I put together on a list for you to use. I'm going to use this. I'm going to have to update part of this that's wrong, and update it as I go along and make notes and that sort of thing. And again, this is Single Mom Advice. I hope this has been helpful. If you have other ideas, please comment on the at the bottom, and hit subscribe and like if this was helpful to you. Thanks so much. See you next time.